Another day, another marketing tip tea time. You're watching this on a Friday, and guess what? We have another amazing guest for the show today, which I'm going to introduce you to. Her name is Melanie Kohn. Again, we have some great guests for this season, so we hope that you stay tuned for all of the episodes that we are going to air this season. Let me introduce you to Melanie Kohn. Melanie Kohn is a former child actor from the San Francisco Bay Area. She was the voice of Lucy van Pelt in Peanuts. Yes, Peanuts. I'm sure you all know Peanuts, Charlie Brown. She was the voice of Lucy van Pelt in Peanuts from 1974 to 1977. Kohn has worked in radio as an on-air personality and marketing specialist where she enjoyed writing and voicing many of her clients' ads. Please welcome me to Melanie. Yeah, let's welcome Melanie. Here she is. How are
Hey,
you?
good. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing well. Great to see you again. So just as a backstory, Melanie and I met at Black Hills Con in South Dakota. Thank you to the Argizes who put that on. It was a fantastic Comic Con that Zova Marketing helped to promote, and Melanie was one of the guests.
It was an amazing experience.
It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. Again, everyone, I still have my cold, but I am getting over it. The tea always helps. And Melanie actually wanted a tea that is super awesome. She wanted a lemon tea. So we've been saying it wrong on the show. We've been saying Twinnings. It turns out it's not pronounced Twinnings, it's pronounced Twinings. It is an old English pronunciation, which is Twinings. Yeah, so sorry about all of the times we've mispronounced that, but we've got the Herbal Lemon Delight Tea, caffeine free. So I'm going to go ahead and steep that here. We can cut the tea cam. Looks like tea cam might be frozen. There we go. And now I'll let that steep. So we have this, beautiful tea kettle that we got, which matches the aesthetic. So let me just take a smell, and I can smell the lemon coming through. That's going to be a good tea. So I'll let that steep for a second and start asking some questions as this steeps. Okay, so I think, you know, everybody wants to know, Melanie, voice acting or marketing? That's a big question.
The preference?
Yeah, which one do you like better?
Oh, that is a tough question. That's a really tough question. Um, I have to say that I love them both. I absolutely love voice acting as well as regular acting, and I love marketing. They're so different, and marketing gives you an opportunity to be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and voice acting gives you an opportunity to be somebody else.
Oh, I like that answer a lot. All right, next question. Which do you prefer, radio or TV?
Oh, they're so different. Radio,
Yep.
so with radio you have your voice, and that's it.
Right.
With TV, you have, it's physical as well. So with radio, I think that there are challenges with both. And I think
Right.
that with radio, the challenge is to bring everything through with your voice. And I do like that
Oh,
challenge.
okay. So that there's a lot more depth that you have to give to your voice to really bring that out. You don't really have your body
Yes,
to do that in radio. Okay.
exactly. Exactly.
And then I asked this a lot of a lot of our guests, but what is your favorite book?
So and this is something that you and I discussed, but I am a true crime buff. I
Mm-hmm.
love nonfiction, so I love reading about everything that has to do with the earth and space and the sea. I'm just intrigued. But
Yeah.
true crime, I've really tried to analyze why it's so intriguing to me. I think a lot of it is the forensics and how far the forensics
Mm,
have come through the years, from when
yeah.
I started reading about it. But honestly, judge me or not, I love the Night Stalker book by Philip
Oh,
Carlo.
wow.
Um,
Okay.
it's a long book, and it's really detailed and it's really gruesome, but it's just really interesting for me to read about how things were back in the 80s, and how, compare it to how far forensics has come since then.
Yeah, that's really cool to
And
see,
I'm
especially in writing, sort of how that has progressed. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I'm not into, I mean, it horrifies me to think that people have been murdered. That's not the part that I like.
Right.
It's just the it's just the, there's a current thing going on with 4 college students that were killed in Idaho, and it's just amazing to me how they caught um the alleged suspect, and what they can do now to find people,
Yeah.
it's people just can't get away with murder. It's really, really difficult.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, especially now. I think there's been a lot of technology that's come out and it gets a lot more difficult. I guess backtracking a little bit off of the murder route, which everybody's probably like, "Ooh, I want to hear more about that" because it's always super intriguing. More on the less murdery side. How did you become the voice of Lucy Van Pelt? Tell us that story.
Well, when I was about 5 years old, my father signed me up at a casting agency in San Francisco, and I had started in theater at about 3, so I was already familiar with acting. And the first role that I was called in for, that I didn't have to audition for, was, I was an extra in The Godfather, the first Godfather,
Oh my
and
gosh,
it happened.
I didn't know
I didn't
that.
tell you that.
No, you didn't. That's so cool.
It was filmed in the town where I lived. It was supposed to they were supposed to be in New England, but, this town where I lived in California looked so similar to New England that they used it for that scene. It was a school
Wow.
scene, towards the end of the movie with Diane Keaton, and each of the kids got a chance to be in the front of the line, and, we didn't know which take they were gonna pick until
Hmm.
we actually went to the movie theater and watched the movie and waited 3 hours for that scene to come on, and they picked the take where I was in the front holding Diane Keaton's hand, and so that was really thrilling for me.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I do actually, when I go to shows, and I know I'm skipping ahead about shows, but I do actually offer an 8 by 10, a screen grab from that scene, and some merchandise from The Godfather, in addition to my peanut stuff.
That's
So it
cool.
kinda adds a little dimension. But what happened shortly after that, my sister auditioned for Lucy in Peanuts, and she got the part. My sister's 2 years older than I am. Her name is Robin Cohn, and she voiced Lucy, and then suddenly she retired. And they don't tell you when you retire. So Peanuts always uses kids' voices. And, the kids started about 10 years old, and then suddenly they're not called anymore because the producers noticed that their voices started changing. Of course, it's more apparent with
Mm.
boys, but girls' voices change as well. So one day they called the house and they wanted my parents to bring me in to audition for Sally and for Lucy. And they ended up saying that my voice was too deep for Sally because she's Charlie Brown's little sister, and she's
Mm.
supposed to be younger than everybody else. And it was a little bit too high for Lucy. I was 9 turning 10 that year. And they decided to let me work into the part. They gave me the part of Lucy. And, I started out with a little bit higher voice, but then my voice started changing and I worked into it. And then I retired when I was 12 or 13.
Wow. And I'm guessing they did the same thing. Or one day you just weren't called back.
Yes. I
Oh
was
my.
waiting and waiting, and it never happened. It didn't
Wow.
happen again.
And I guess that's just sort of the industry.
For that, and for that cartoon, specific cartoon, they
Yeah.
do use adult voices. As you know, like everybody knows The Simpsons. They've used the same voice for Bart Simpson for forever, and so people when they meet me, I have to specifically tell them that I was one of the original voices. I was the fifth voice, and there have been dozens since, because
Yeah.
Peanuts always uses kids. They still do.
Wow. And there's a bit of marketing, I guess, into becoming a character for a show, where you have to really get into the character, figure out what kind of inflections and what the personality is of that person, which I guess would be a lot like uh, creating a persona in marketing, where you're trying to understand the audience. You're sort of becoming this different person. What does it take? And I know that you were a child at the time, but what does it take to mentally get into that zone to become Lucy from Peanuts?
Well, to be perfectly honest, it really didn't take much. As a kid, I used my regular voice, and what they did back then was they had us voice our parts, and we worked with the producers, so we didn't work with the other kids, and um, and then they drew frame by frame the cartoon, so they matched it up with the voices, and
Wow.
so they did it. It was kind of the opposite of what you would think. They matched each picture up with our voices, so we didn't have to look and say, oh, I have to match that exact, match the mouth exactly.
Oh.
So we didn't really need to. Well, I'll speak for myself, but I really didn't need to change. If they told me sound mad or sound crabby, of course, I had to make that, change up a little bit, but it really wasn't a big switch.
Okay. And then eventually you end up in radio and you're an on air personality and a marketing specialist. Um, can you tell me a bit about your journey from child actor to working in radio and how that kind of overlapped a little bit or was different as you were sort of bridging that? And I know there's probably a huge gap from when you were a child actor to when you were finally in radio, but tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, I had an interest in so many different things. I actually went to technical school when I was 19, and I became a dental assistant. But I did
Oh.
go to college a couple years later, and I took English and literature, drama, poetry, creative writing, and broadcasting. I had so many interests, and I went on, and I had some diversions in my early adult life. So I didn't finish college at that point, but I had an interest in broadcasting, and I actually worked as a dental assistant for several years, and then at a point when I was in my 20s, I moved to Florida from California, and I decided that it was time that I find a job at a radio station. It had been in
Mm.
my mind all these years. So I went in, and back then, of course, dating myself, I'm looking through the newspaper, and
Right.
I find this little locally owned station, and I go in and I do an interview. And the first thing I said to the manager was, "I love country music. This would be so perfect for me." And so he went on with the interview, and then he called me back for a second interview, and he said, "I want to give you a piece of advice, Melanie. When you go in if you're going to interview at a radio station, you really should turn on the station before you go in for your interview,
Oh
because,
gosh.
of course, we're looking at phone books, and we're looking at newspapers back then. This
Yeah.
was in the the very early, it was 1990 actually. And the station had changed to a Christian station. And the phone book still said it was a
Wow.
country station. So I'm trying to play that up, to get the job because I loved country music and I knew about country
Yep.
music. So, but he was amused by that. And I got hired and I worked on air in the mornings. And I actually had an on air auction twice a week that, I go and I get trades with local businesses and I would
Wow.
auction off certificates for the listeners. And it was a lot of
Wow.
fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Um, so I guess in that aspect, one of the key takeaways here, and we call this spilling the tea, is do as much research as you can about the company you'll be applying to make sure that you don't call a Christian station a country station. Because phone books aren't
Absolutely.
updated
It's
that
so
often, that's for sure.
No, no, about
Yeah.
once a year. So it's extremely important when you go to apply for a job to research that company as much as you can. And when you're doing your resume specific to that job that you're applying for, use some of those key words that they use in their mission statement or in their
Mm,
description of the company.
that's some great advice. For all those students who watch the show, this is some great advice for you. And I'm gonna touch on the tea real quick. This is a very nice lemon tea. Just nice all around lemon tea. It doesn't have so I'm not a huge fan of ginger, as some of our viewers might know. I will have it in a tea when it's there. But I really worked to find a lemon tea that didn't have ginger. And this was one of the only lemon teas I found out there that also didn't have ginger in it. So this is a lot more low key. And I think it's good that I didn't get ginger because ginger would probably be upsetting my throat a little bit with the cold. So it's just a straight lemon tea, and I really enjoy it. Melanie says that she put some honey in hers. How does that taste?
It tastes really good. I don't use a whole lot of honey. I don't like it super sweet, but we were talking earlier about, just warm water and honey and lemon is great for your throat.
Yep.
Lemon, of course, is as we most of us know is really good for your throat and it just feels good. It's a pleasant taste and I just love lemon on everything. I'm putting lemon
Oh
on my
yeah.
salmon that I'm cooking tonight.
I love lemon too. I put yeah lemon on seafood all the time. Um, yeah, this is just a great tea. Like I said, just a really solid tea. If you're a fan of lemon but not a fan of ginger, I think this is the tea for you because it really came through. Um, I guess back to the questions here. Your journey to radio looks like it took lots of different paths and then you finally ended up in radio. Can you tell me a crazy story that you have from your radio days? Maybe something that went a little wrong and you had to problem solve or some sort of a marketing issue that was solved by you and how that went.
Well, so I was new to Florida and, I was young. I was in my 20s, so I didn't have a whole lot of life experience. And, there are different restaurants in different areas. So, I was really, really gung ho about getting out there and, finding some advertisers, paid advertisers, as well as some trade for my
Mm,
auction. And so I went out and started hitting restaurants. I thought that would be, great to do that because restaurants always go well with with listeners if they can get a deal
mm-hmm.
on a certificate and, pay $6 for a $10 certificate. Back then it'd probably be more like 50 now, but um
Yeah.
so I went into this restaurant and I talked to the manager and he said, "Absolutely. I'd love to do this trade with you. This would be great." So I was so excited and I went back. This was actually my very first trade. I went back to the station and I told my manager who had quite a sense of humor. Um, and I told him, I said, "I got this restaurant." And he said, "Oh," did the high five and he was
Yeah.
so happy. And he said, "Okay, we need to, write up this paperwork and we need to work on the ad and everything." And so he said, which restaurant is it? And I said, it's called Hooters. It's got this owl on the top. And he just laughed, and I'm thinking to myself, why is he laughing? But I was still very new at the station, and I
Yeah, and
thought,
this was a Christian
okay, well, he's
station, right?
this was a
At the
Christian station, and that is the
Okay.
point. The point
Yeah.
is that my manager was just so easygoing and had a great sense of humor, and he just didn't have an issue with having Hooters as a client. So, we got everything ready and we got the ad going, and I went on to my auction the next time that it was on, Wednesday or Saturday. And, I said, okay, we've got Hooters gift certificates, $10 certificate for $6. And found out the next day that there was a call into the traffic lady who, um, you know, handled the schedules. And she said, well, we did have one or two of our listeners call in and, with a complaint about our new client. So, there were some very, very steadfast, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they were just offended. They were highly offended. And my
Wow.
manager really didn't care. So they stayed on as a client. I think he would rather have them as a client and lose a listener or two. So
Oh my
that's
gosh.
a story that I'll never forget.
That's a great. So, tell me a little bit about your pitch when, you were young and hungry, you said, going out to get these sponsors, to get these trade deals. What was your angle going in? How did you go in and say, "Hey, this is going to be a good deal for you"? What was your pitch?
Well, one of the things that I've learned along the way, and I learned a lot from that first experience. And one of the things that I remember he taught me was, sometimes we'll do like an ad or two, like a demo, just to play it for a potential client so they can hear how it sounds. And then, once they hear that an ad has been made for their product or their service, then, a lot of times they're a lot more likely to buy because
Oh,
they've heard that. And, it's like it's all ready to go. I mean, put a little music behind it and it's ready to go. And it's a lot easier for people to make that decision. But one of the things that this manager taught me was, he did for a specific client, and he used this as an example to help teach me. One of his clients, he did 3 different ads, and, there was A, B, and C, and he played all of them for the potential client, and he said, "Which one do you like best?" And the
mhm.
client said, "Oh, I like C best." And he said, "Oh, really? C? I'm really surprised. I thought you would pick A, but you picked C. Why did you pick C?" Oh, that was the catch right there, because then the potential client explained to him what he liked about that ad, and he was
Mm.
selling himself. So it
Oh my
became a
gosh,
lot easier.
that's genius.
Yes, it is. It really is. And, he became emotionally attached to that ad. So
Wow.
it's something that I learned from somebody who had a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But what I found, yeah, what I found, and there were many years that went by, about 20 years that went by before I worked for a station again. And I was in my 40s when I decided to find a job at a station again. And I was solely a marketing specialist. I wasn't on air. I mean, I did
Hmm.
voice a lot of the ads, but I didn't have an on air. I didn't have a
Oh, you
shift
weren't the
on air.
personality.
So
Yeah.
right, right. So one of the things that kind of fell into place for me was just being real, going
Yeah.
in and meeting people and getting to know them, and just sitting down with them and avoiding avoiding giving opinions on certain things like politics and religion.
Yeah,
If
of
they
course.
Yeah, if they wanted to talk about it, I just, smile and nod my head, because, you know, it you can lose people very, very easily by, being bringing up these subjects. So I found that, by giving attention to my potential clients and then my clients, um, going in at times when I wasn't trying to sell something, just going in to say hi, how's it going? Maybe
Mm,
bringing them something, knowing what they like, knowing them, knowing what they like.
yeah.
Um, I found that it really fell into place for me. I didn't need a pitch. And I hope that that's not that that's okay for an answer.
No, that
But,
is.
I really f it for me, I think getting to know my potential clients and paying attention to them and really listening to what their needs were and what their problems were, what kept them up at night. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Know Find out what keeps them up at night and help to find a solution, but not to push it on them. And I had so many of them that would say, "I'm not ready. I'm not ready to advertise right now." And, a hard sell salesperson would say, would really push and push and push.
Hmm.
But for me, if they said, I need 2 months, I'm going to have I'm moving some things around, and I need 2 months, then I would calendar them for 6 weeks, and I would go back. And I think that they weren't threatened by me because I wasn't pushy, but I was there when they needed me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of all about building a relationship and
Yes.
just being authentic and a real person. I don't think that many people like this. Sometimes it's effective, I think, because you scare people when you're a very aggressive salesperson. People get scared into saying yes. But
Yes.
at least I
Intimidated.
don't,
Yes.
right, at least I don't think that that is a long term solution. Because then there's always in the back of their head, like, I felt pressured to go into this. I felt coerced. This doesn't feel good. So I think that we have a lot of people who say something similar to you. It's like, it's all about the relationship. It's all about being a real person and not like a sales robot who just wants to land the sale. So
Yes.
that's some,
Exactly.
that's some great advice. And, with that, with being an on-air personality and even in the marketing role, and then being a voice actor, that you were as a child, and now you're going around and doing different comic cons, and you're signing autographs, and you're taking pictures, and you're meeting with people. Can you tell me a little bit about how, switching gears here, how personal branding plays a role into all of these different areas of your life that you've lived?
Yes. And I need to ask you, I need to go off camera for 1 second to wipe my nose. Is that okay?
That is, we can just go to me real quick, cut to me,
Okay. All
and
right.
then there we go. And then yeah, and then nobody knows. You can definitely. And I'll sip on my tea. Today, our
Okay,
advertising
I'm good.
sponsor is Zova Marketing. Okay, perfect. Now back to Melanie.
I just didn't want it to start running away on me.
No,
Um,
that's
so
perfect.
I so I think that I approach this in the same way. I really learned a lot from that station that I just referred to. That was actually in Washington State. And then when I moved here to Texas, I worked for another station, and I did the same thing there, where I just went in and met people, and and then I started working. I was working there during at the beginning of COVID, so I
Okay, yeah.
was do, just taking a different approach and emailing people because there was a point where couldn't walk into these businesses. So I think that I take a really similar approach with what I'm doing now. I prospect in the same way that I did at the radio station. I can't walk in to these places. I'm prospecting all over the country, but I do reach out
Right.
by email. I introduce myself. I give them very little background about myself. I send some pictures of previous shows that I've done and,
Mhm.
my setup. And the biggest thing for me is that I take a no as a future yes. I don't take it as, oh no, I've been rejected. I'm going to be depressed for the rest of the day. I just move on. It's the more you put out there, the more chance that something's going to come back. So if I've prospected 5 places one morning and I get an email back and somebody says, no, I'm not interested. I can't
Right.
afford to bring you in. I could sit there and say, oh no, I really wanted to go to this show. I'm so depressed. Or I could just say, oh, okay, great. And now I know that they're not able to do this year. So I'm going to, keep going, keep going.
Right.
Don't stop. Don't let anything trip me up. So I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly the way you asked me, but I really want to put my name out there as much as possible. It's the same thing. It's all a numbers game. The more you put your name out there, the more I've just met so many new people, gotten so many contacts. I mean, look at how I met you.
Yep.
Just I could have just been on one track and, I'm here to do this show and I'm not going to talk to anybody else, but I try to meet people and get new contacts um I cannot emphasize enough what I said a little earlier. When I meet the fans, I listen to the fans. I
Mm.
engage with the fans, and I don't engage in any type of conversation that involves politics or religion or anything that's can be controversial because I will lose half my fan base if I
Right.
engage in something like that.
Well, I think that that brings up a great point about, again, sort of your personal branding and what you're doing at the shows is that, and this is for all marketers, it's a numbers game. Be real and listening to your audience. What do they want to
Yes.
see? What do they want? And that probably informs you about, which stills you bring to sign from Peanuts and which things you want to
Yes.
bring to the show. What's popular is what you bring, and what people are asking
Yes.
for is what you bring. So
Yes.
I think that's really important for marketers to hear. And we had another show that we recorded earlier this morning, and he sort of said the same thing. He said, you have got to listen to the customers and the clients. They will tell you what they want if you are willing to ask and listen.
And also clarify. I mean, this goes with any type of sales. Clarify, make sure that you understand what they're telling you. If there's any doubt or at least repeat what they've said so that they know that you're listening and they
Yeah.
know that you get what they just said. People want to be heard, and people who are going to put money out for something need full attention. And they need to be heard.
I think I said that already, but we call that spilling the tea on Marketing Tip Tea Time. Another bit of great advice for any, and that's not just for marketers. I think that's just sort of in general. Anybody who's working or trying to do anything, that's some super great advice. Um, we met at a convention, and you have a lot of conventions coming up, it sounds like. Tell me a bit about the role that marketing plays into what you're doing now at these conventions, and how you're engaging with the audience, and how you're leveraging social media, which is one thing that I follow you a lot on.
I'm so bad with that. I
No, you're
think
good.
that
You're good.
I'm good with the one medium that I use. I really I know that I need to get up on all the other social media platforms. I use Facebook, but I do use it well. I use it consistently. I will say that. Um, I I think that I I go to the shows, and as and I can't emphasize this enough. I listen, as you said, you need to bring what the fans like. I listen to what they like and what's popular. And I listen to and I ask them questions. That's the thing too. I engage. And I think for me, there's different ways of doing things. I know the vendors at these shows, this is their livelihood, and they pay to get there. They pay for
Yep.
everything. They pay for their gas, they pay for food, they pay for um, lodging, and they pay for their table. And they have competition there, and they have to draw the people in, and they have to bring people over to their table. For me, I take a little more subtle approach. I do catch people because the way that some shows are set up, it's not apparent that I'm sitting in a row of guests. There's
Mm.
some shows where I am mixed in with the vendors, and so I do. My hook is simply, "Are you a Peanuts fan?" And most people say
Yeah,
yes.
show us your
Or,
shirt because I know that
oh,
it's that's perfect.
you see? Yeah.
That's a great shirt.
So, most people are Peanuts fans, and or they have a mother, or an aunt, or a father, grandfather, somebody. Um, so I'm really fortunate because Peanuts is generational. I get, my main demographic is people my age, or a little older, a little younger. And then, they've introduced Peanuts to their children. And then in turn their children. So the
Yeah.
grandchildren of these people that are my age or a little bit older, I'm getting I'm getting different generations. Or if I ask somebody that glances over at my table, if they're a Peanuts fan, um, you know, like I said, if they're not, usually right away they'll think of somebody. Oh, my mom, I hear that the most.
Yeah.
But I hear, oh, a friend or somebody. And people are, I found I speak for myself, not for other guests, but for me, I find that a huge percentage of the people that come up and buy from me are actually buying as a gift for somebody else.
That's some great insight that that I grew up on Peanuts, and my aunt Judy actually used to work for the publishing company, I believe, for Peanuts, and so or the foundation, one of those, the Peanuts Foundation that was around. Um, and every year, still, I try to watch Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween. Those are the three big ones. And yeah, everybody is or knows somebody who's a Peanuts fan, and I think that's some great insight for a brand really that has taken over the world, where you can say Peanuts, or sometimes you have to say Charlie Brown to some of the younger generations. They don't
Yeah.
know the Peanuts, and
Or
automatically
or Snoopy.
people. Oh yeah, or Snoopy. Yeah, exactly.
Mm,
So no,
yeah.
that I mean, that is just fantastic that you bring all these generations together to share something as well. I think that really speaks to the brand and the movement that you were a part of as a child, honestly. So no, that's great. Do you have any last advice, last bits of stories that you'd like to give to any of our watchers or listeners that you think would be super powerful?
That'll cost 5 cents.
Josh, where are the nickels? I don't have it.
I think that just to kind of recap, um, I can't stress enough. Be yourself, be
Yeah.
authentic, Um, be grateful. I think that, I can't really off the top of my head think of you know, anything really super funny that's happened to me since I started doing these shows about a year and a half ago. I've had wonderful experiences. Um, I always go in with gratitude and leave with gratitude because it's really really special. I feel honored to be able to do this, and I think just for your listeners or people that are watching that you have students, marketing students. I think that it's so important to um, go in with their real personality. Try not to do, just be authentic. Try not to um, be pushy or
Yep.
not be straightforward about things.
That's some great advice, especially for our students out there who are watching and or listening to this show, which is, a huge chunk of the people who are viewers. Melanie, thank you so much for all of the time you've given us today, and thank you for the amazing tea. This has really helped me out today. Everyone, pardon the
Good.
cold, pardon the voice, pardon the brain fog a little bit while I was trying to speak. But we made it through another marketing tip tea time with a wonderful guest, a wonderful, amazing guest. And again, Melanie and I are, and my wife, we're all great friends now since Black Hills Con, and I've been wanting to get Melanie on the show for quite some time, and I'm really, really thankful that we were able to make it happen this season. Where can we catch up with you? Where can we find you? What social media? What's your next show? How can people find you, Melanie?
Well, I'll be in Tampa, Florida this weekend at Super RetroCon. And if you just type in at Melanie, Melanie J Kohn, Kohn, that will bring up my Facebook business page. And as soon as my events are promoted, I create an event, so everything is on
Cool.
there. And all my I put pictures up there and sometimes little comic strips. So it's a lot of fun. It's pretty much peanuts related.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And a future podcast we're going to create is about cults, so stay tuned for that. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see.
Oh,
Ooh, yeah. We bonded over talking about cults at a dinner one night in South Dakota. So maybe that'll come to a podcast near you. Maybe not. We'll see. But everyone, thank you again so much for all of your support. Thank you to everyone who makes this show possible, including Bike Shop Agency, Josh French, who is our technical producer, Phil Van Drunen, one of our producers, Peter Romero, who is our graphics and music supervisor, Alyssa and Sheridan Youngval, our set directors and our set creators. Thank you to everyone who has ever given us a sponsorship or watched. We love you all, and we hope that you got some great tips, tricks, and sips of tea on this show and marketing. So thank you again. We're just really thankful to be in season 5, and season 6 is going to be coming up soon. Can you believe it? So we'll keep you tuned for that. And until next time, everyone, thank you, Melanie. Thank you, everyone. Nastravi.
thank
Cheers.
you.